Okay, we are live on the hour. How's it goings out there, my dear friends? Today we're opening up an article from our dear friends over at apologeticspress.org. And is it org? Let me check here. Is it org or com.com? I forget now. Apologeticspress.org. Yeah, there we go. In regards to bioluminescence. Bioluminescence. Let's talk science stuff, right? That should be interesting. Well, it's good to have you as always. My name's Stefan Maillet. AddedSouls.com is the website. And I labor alongside the East Coast Church of Christ over here on the East Coast of Canada. You can check out the .com, East Coast Church of Christ.com. A beautiful, healthy, and growing congregation. And we'd love to have you come visit, come study with us. You'd be our honored guest. You get to see how a church family that truly values the blessing of the Christ, how we function. And we'd love to have you part of that. So for this here session, it is a bit lengthy in the article, but for those of you who find value in this, please consider subscribing, liking, following, sharing, comment maybe, stuff like that. Helps others out there as well to tap in to this kind of thing. Because some of us, we come from a background that perhaps did not really appreciate Christianity all that much, didn't really want to have much to do with it, either from an atheistic perspective or worldview or other pagan or heathenistic religious traditions, if you will, and we never really cared much for Christianity because from our perspective, Christianity was just a big mess. And when you look at Christianity created in the image of men, yeah, it's a confusing mess of hypocrisy and contradiction. But if you're capable of, going past that reality and truly seeking to focus on pure Christianity created in the image of the scriptures, in the image of the divine author in which penned the information you and I can tap into and read and learn and believe and so on and so forth, well, you'll begin to see a great difference there. I never thought Christianity was real or I entertained the idea that perhaps there is no God, things like that, because, well, science, right? The experts. However, there begin to be discrepancies, unanswered questions, and the thinking mind. When we permit ourselves to withdraw the worldview of nothingness into, well, maybe there is something. Maybe we do come from somewhere else. Maybe there is a higher power, stuff like that. And maybe science backs that up. And we go down that path and find out that, there is actually some evidence. Like there's a reason most of our scientists and the scientific model, which holds facets of absolute, by the way, reveal themselves as believers in a higher power, that through the natural realm and what is observable, tested, and observable, reproduced, perhaps, or all the scientific models in a natural realm could indeed point to a supernatural realm. And what is the true deficiency in that? Besides the whole movement that said you're a crazy person, you're a fool, and various other, how should I say, character attacks, ad hominem attacks upon the even slight thought that maybe what we see in the natural realm points to something or an origin which comes from a supernatural realm, like something like that. No, immediately that was shut down. But there was a time where that was permitted within the scientific model and conversation. It's like, well, maybe what we see here and can observe and can reproduce here in the natural realm points to a supernatural origin. I mean, what's wrong with permitting or having a free-thinking mind within the realm of the scientific model? Is that such a quote-unquote sin? Well, it has become now, obviously, because I believe the cult-like worshippers of the religion of nothingness, to which, again, I entertained for a while and perhaps even subscribed to for a spat, they've hijacked the scientific model and the system and have made it or created it in their own image, which is you are no longer permitted at any time for any frame to even consider the thought that perhaps what is seen here naturally has a divine supernatural source. It comes from something greater than self. That perhaps there is indeed a God, the God. Some of us began to see that, and we begin to say, well, there's nothing to lose if we look into this whole Christian stuff, and if there is a God, and which God is the real God? Is it the Hindu gods? Is it the Islamic God? Is it the Christian God? Well, all these questions came to our thoughts, and we began to formulate them. It took years, of course. This is not something where 5 minutes after the fact, we're like, oh, that's it, I'm sold. Christianity's right or wrong. This is slow as molasses, the honey drip kind of method where we're asking questions, we're seeking evidence, and lo and behold, there is answers. And sometimes it is true. Sometimes the answer is we don't have an answer. That's a reality. Sometimes the answer is we don't have one. Understood. But there are answers to some deep discrepancies. And I understand, because I was once there, when the only experience you've ever had with Christianity is self-righteous hypocrisy, contradiction, and again, Christianity created in the image of men, when you see out there all these religious bodies who are divided, yet claim to be united, yet they are divided in all their traditions, their ordinances, their shrines, their creeds, their statements of faith, their this, that, and the other, yet they all claim to be Christians. And then you start to read the book that they hold, which is a Bible, and you start to see that the man they say they believe in, the Christ, is speaking about how they are to all be united in the same common salvation, Jude 3, and have unity, as was recorded from the prayer of the Christ to his Father in the Gospel of John. And you start to see the division out there. You're like, well, Christianity is not... Like, what are these people are... I mean, I'm not going to subscribe to that system. I'm just not going to subscribe to that system. The system that makes more sense to me is atheism or things of that function because, well, science. And so there is such a wealth of confusion. But again, the more we find ourselves just reading what the scriptures say within its context, the more I'm like, okay, so what is seen out there from individuals who claim to be Christians are not really practicing or following the same Christ that's in the Bible. Now, many of these individuals are benevolent, they're kind, they're decent human beings, many of them. Many of them are trustable people that give you the shirt off their back to help you. They're kind, benevolent, decent neighbors and human beings, members of family maybe, family, friends, co-workers, whatever. But the belief system they adhere to, they subscribe to, is just ridiculous. Like, I don't see those things. Like, for instance, okay, you would have a certain persuasion of individuals who claim to be Christians in a set denomination, and they're like, they're talking about feeling some kind of power, and they've seen stuff, and they've. But reality is no. Like, the scientific model, the history of it all, we no. Like, it's delusional what you believe in. The things you are saying are delusional. So it kind of withdraws us from subscribing to that. But once you can get past all of that, and you truly just go to the most purest form of Christianity known to man, which is found in the 27 books of the New Testament, the age of the Messiah, the Christian age to which you and I are called to be good stewards of. We live in this dispensation, the age of the Messiah. And if you begin to just simply read for yourself with independent thought, intellectually capable, you begin to read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, without any outside influence or persuasion or agenda or ambition or motive, and you just, by your own thinking mind, you set away all distractions, and you begin to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you move forward, and you keep reading. It becomes quite apparent that what you are reading is very different than what man has since created and called Christianity. But you will also begin to recognize that you're not the only one who's coming up with this You're not the only one who's recognizing there's a difference. There are many others around the world. There are many congregations that belong to Christ who adhere to the very pure nature of Christianity, written by the author's mind. It's a divine source, and it's very different than quote-unquote Christianity created in the image of men that you see out there in vast rivers, just so many of them, thousands of them. And so with that, with such a thought for evidence, I needed something tangible. I needed to be able to say, well, I'm not going to believe in some kind of a higher power unless there is true evidence. And part of that evidence, of course, was a humble, searching heart. Like, I wanted to know. Because again, I can observe things. I can observe the mechanism and the engineering of self. I can move my fingers, my hands. I can think. I have eyes. I have ears. I can taste. I can experience. Well, where does, how can something non-intelligent and non-existing spontaneously create something so intricate and so detailed? And the mechanism we have, how can the answer of, well, we just don't know yet or whatever is just not sufficient to me? I need to know something. I need to know where why is everything we see so clearly and plainly filled with creative intelligence? What is so wrong for us to permit our thoughts to say, if we can recognize creative intelligence, it must come from a creative source, a creator who is intelligent. What's so wrong with that? Well, it wasn't wrong for ever, and it only became wrong once again the cult-like religion of godlessness hijacked the scientific model. And they persuaded us quite eloquently for a long time. And it was always with, again, they do this. The persuasion of the enemy is always going to ad hominem. So I was going to say, well, you're a foolish individual if you adhere or even entertain the thought of this, that, and the other. Well, now, wait a minute. Now you're closing off the ability for us to freely think. And that's not right. That's not right. So in part and parcel, a branch and system to evidence in regards to what we can plainly see is bioluminescence, which I find quite fascinating, truly. Well, it's one of the reasons I chose to share an article from our friends over at apologeticspress.org in regards to bioluminescence from scientists. And that you need not to be ashamed or be ridiculed or scoffed or feel yourself doing something wrong because you're thinking for yourself. I've learned that the individuals who scream, free thinkers, are most often than not the individuals who cannot freely think at all. They're locked in this little dungeon where they've been told what they are permitted to believe. Well, let's break free from that shackle, that dungeon, and freely think and use the faculty of our thoughts engineered to do so. And together we will read this article from apologeticspress.org in regards to bioluminescence. Friends, I appreciate all your comments, all of you joining in. Beautiful, wonderful. Please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all those things. You can support the work, obviously. This is how, I put food on the table through His good grace. If you're willing, share some stars here on Facebook. 100 stars is $1. Okay, you can do that. You can sign up to our Freedom platform and community for exclusive content, a more personal look and reports and updates. It's called addedsouls.locals.com. You can sign up there and support us monthly. Or there's the PayPal option for a donation, and the email there is addedsouls@gmail.com. If you seek a physical address, reach out to me. We'll have a conversation. So yeah, let's put the article on the screen because it is fairly a lengthy one, and it's probably going to be tedious as these here episodes can be regarding the science behind it and the elaborate information revealed but it's a faith builder. It builds faith. It builds faith. And that is important because you want to be able to defend what you believe. A great many times, many children leave the church, if you will, because they have questions and mom and dad are just, well, it's just the way it is. It's all what we've always believed and you just keep believing that. Well, that's not sufficient. That doesn't give you any platform or foundation or anchor to hold things secure. So you're going to drift away to the godless mind because they seem to be saying words like science and evidence and facts. Though again, once you fall into that snare, you find out that they don't have any science, evidence, or facts. But you are attracted to go that way if mom and dad don't have answers, or if the church, the religious leaders don't have answers. And again, most of them don't out there. They just don't. Interesting verse, of course, that I had found in the scriptures here. I'll put it up on the screen. Found in Hebrews, right? Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 through 3, 1, 2, 3. And it says, now faith, which is trust, is the substance, it's the very essence, substance, the value of things. What things? Hoped for. Which is, of course, the evidence. Now, evidence is something you can hold that's tangible of the things not seen. So you can trust in the substance of things hoped for. The evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Interesting. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God. In other words, what you are capable of observing with your own two eyes and your thinking mind all around you. The galaxies, the stars, the rivers, the mountains, the trees, the animal kingdom, human biology, the plant life biology, everything we see intricately detailed all around us, engineered with great intelligence and creative thought. I mean, everything around us points to something bigger. It just does. It does. And we've been trying to suppress that, and it causes a breach of conscience. Because it's kind of like, you're telling me not to believe in something I can see with my own two eyes. Rivers don't exist. Well, yeah, they do. Through faith, we understand. See, it's an educational process. We can understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God. The galaxy and its planets, everything around us, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. We see them. We know they exist. We see them with our own two eyes. And it is of such a precision that we can know that it was not just accidentally put there. It doesn't matter how many years you put to it. Billions and billions and trillions and quadrillions of years. No. It doesn't matter how. You can bow down to the cult of time, the religion of time. That is indeed the religious format and evangelistic method of the atheist mind. Time. With enough time, everything you see came to be. Well, no. It's quite much more simple, really. Through faith, we can understand, we can have the evidence, of course, recognized, and have the educational process move forward, recognizing that everything we see around us must come from something more powerful, outside its law, which was created, from a divine source, so that it appears which are seen were not made of things which do appear. That was an interesting verse while I was, moving forward and trying to figure things out. It makes, at the beginning, I'm like, what do you mean? You want me to have blind faith, to believe in something I can't even see? Well, no, it's not blind faith, and it's the Bible's not asking us to believe in something we can't see. It's saying, take a look at what you can see and make the logical conclusion from it. If I see a chair, I'm going to figure out quite rapidly. Somebody built that chair. And yet they want us to think that somehow the 1 + 1 = 2 formula, somehow you're a complete fool and should be scoffed and ridiculed, mocked and persecuted for even considering the thought that seeing a chair must therefore necessitate a chair maker. Oh, you foolish individual. Well, of course, no one takes that claim on an earthly natural illustration, but somehow we immediately do so upon, well, where did this human vessel, its engineering, it came from nothing. Nothing exploded into something, don't you know? The experts say so. The science. You are a slave to the dance of your DNA. Nothing more than instinctual beast, survival of the fittest. We've evolved. That model just doesn't stand up anymore. And remember, we're receiving the information of these quote unquote experts who can't even discern the difference between male and female, who can't even describe to you what a female is. Yet somehow nothing exploded into something. And some of these individuals, by the way, are extremely intelligent human beings, which proves the point. You can be as smart as you want to, but yet as foolish as anything. Proclaiming themselves to be wise, they became fools. The fool has said in his heart, "No, God." Well, that's just not enough for us. That don't work anymore for us. It doesn't matter if all the public powers and principles proclaim at the top of their lungs in evangelistic effort to try to convince us that we are just nothing and came from nothing, and there is no rhyme or reason or purpose in our existence. The fruits of that ideology are well and alive all around us today. Why the chaos? Why is there such a mass slaughter of human beings? Why is there such division and hate? Why? Because we're nothing more than animals who come from nothing. It's a lie. It was a well-crafted lie, which hijacked, again, the scientific model and history, but it's a lie nonetheless. We can, with thinking mind, know that there is a higher power, something greater than self, by our observational model. Everything around us screams an intelligent divine engineer. It just does. So let's go over to the article here from our friends over at apologeticspress.org. Bioluminescence. It's a fascinating thing. It really is. Truly is fascinating. And I encourage everyone to go look into those things. This is so cool. Living light. The mechanisms and diversity of bioluminescence. Bioluminescence. That's pretty cool. Luke Sullivan, Caleb Hammond, Joe DeWeese. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but forgive me if I'm not. PhD. Creation versus evolution. Design in animals. Article in brief. Bioluminescence is a fascinating feature of many different organisms in nature. These organisms have the ability to generate light using various complex systems such as luciferin and luciferase or fluorescent proteins. Again, don't hate on me, bro. I'm a French guy speaking English words, trying to pronounce some pretty complicated English words for this French guy. But anyways, you understand. Interestingly, the unique forms of bioluminescence spread across diverse species require evolutionists to assume multiple evolutionary origins for these systems. The elegant design of these systems and the range of organisms using them is better explained by design than by evolutionary accident. And again, myself, the son of a factory worker, not too educated here. I'm not too educated. I still have the operational action of observation. And I can see that the intricate detail of bioluminescence could not just have, oops, I guess it just happened. Look at that. Funny, huh? No. I'm afraid I do demand something a bit more profound in explanation to such a thing. Editor's notes. The following article was co-authored by AP, Apologetics Press, auxiliary staff, staff scientist Dr. Joe DeWeese and two of his talented undergraduate research assistants, Luke Sullivan and Caleb Hammond, both of whom are former Apologetics Press camp attendees. Dr. DeWeese holds a PhD in biochemistry from Vanderbilt University and serves as professor of biochemistry and director of undergraduate research at Freed-Hardeman University. So, in other words, he's not a dum-dum. He knows the difference between male and female. Okay? So in introduction here to the article, we have on a summer night, quoting from the article, on a summer night, one of nature's most captivating sights is the flickering of fireflies. These glowing insects, like many other organisms, exhibit bioluminescence, the ability, of course, to produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. And it's the most fascinating thing. I myself, having been born and raised on the east coast of Canada, during those summer nights, it was truly a joy for us children with the big jars, to go capture these fascinating little insects that just buzz around in the air and illuminate the sky with this bright neon green. And then we'd capture a whole bunch of them, and we'd bring them inside the house, in our bedroom, and we'd have ourselves a nightlight for the evening. Fascinating. Some of you may have experienced that same upbringing or experience, I suppose. Bioluminescence can be found in various creatures, from land-based fungi to ocean-dwelling bacteria. In fact, approximately 76% of all marine organisms are bioluminescent. And that was something I learned because what we call over here the firefly, right? La bébête à feu in French. La mouche à feu. In French, mouche à feu, that's what we would call it. In English, it means a firefly. I thought it was the only creature of its kind that could, light up its behind with this neon green light. But lo and behold, there are others out there, right? So bioluminescence occurs in three main ways. And in the image there, you kind of see one of those little bugs. Bioluminescence occurs in three main ways. The first mechanism is the luciferase system. I wish I knew how to pronounce that, but I don't. But there it is. Kind of sounds like Lucifer. Luciferase system, which involves molecular oxygen, a light-producing molecule called luciferin. Luciferin. I'm going to start speaking French with these words. I'm just going to pronounce them in my French dialect to make it easier on myself here. Producing molecules called luciferin, and an enzyme called luciferase. Luciferase helps oxygen react with luciferin, which leads to light production. Interesting. Yeah, just an accident, right? It's just, oops, I slipped and I fell, and all of a sudden this. Now, while the structures and chemical compositions of luciferins and luciferases vary across species, many organisms, such as fireflies and marine plankton, use a form of this system. And you can see there in the image, within the water, this beautiful, bright neon blue. And it kind of shows you the science behind the mechanism and what triggers this light, if you will. So the second form of bioluminescence uses fluorescent proteins. Okay, so this is the second form of bioluminescence. It uses fluorescent proteins, which absorb one wavelength of light and emit another. Now, while the green fluorescent protein, GFP, from jellyfish has greatly benefited the scientific community, its mechanism is different from other luminescent proteins. The chromophore, the part that absorbs and re-emits light, is located in the primary structure of the protein, which depends upon its amino acid sequence. Researchers have modified GFPs to use in research applications, altering the wavelengths of light that are absorbed and emitted. So finally, there are the photoproteins. These molecules are similar to luciferin in that they react with oxygen to emit light, but the reaction does not require a luciferase. Interestingly, photoproteins and GFP have been discovered as working together in jellyfish. It's unclear how widespread photoproteins are among living organisms. Now, in some cases, bioluminescence is found in organisms that do not generate the light but instead exist in a symbiotic relationship with bioluminescent bacteria. For example, the anglerfish produces light through a specialized organ called the ESCA that houses bioluminescent bacteria. These bacteria use a luciferase type system, but it is very distinct from that found in fireflies and other eukaryotic organisms. Man, this is why I'm probably not going to read the entire article and point you towards it again over at apologeticspress.org. Now, I can read it in my mind, but I'm having, of course, a difficult time pronouncing its words, and I can understand it, but may have a difficulty teaching it, if you will. So I leave that Department of Education to our friends over at apologeticspress.org. No doubt what you and I are going to have more so of a greater conversation with is its practical application in our faith. What is that? The, again, very detailed and elaborate engineering of these little creatures that create a light. It cannot be an accident or a product of quote-unquote evolution. So the remainder of this article aims to explore examples of the diversity of the luciferin-luciferase bioluminescent systems. And the article would bring you to diversity of luciferin-luciferase systems and so on and so forth. And it is quite lengthy, but it is a wonderful read. It is a wonderful read, and it brings you into the deep structure of how these little mechanisms cannot be. They cannot. It's just not a logical conclusion to come up with. They just came to be through the process of evolution. Because the article would bring you to the very real, how should I say, the very real contradictions that would arise if you take the evolution or atheistic model as your worldview. Like, it is impossible. It's just an impossible feat to overcome how there is a contradiction in the atheistic evolution model when it comes to these little creatures, these little insects or whatnots that are bioluminescence. It has to be God-powered, is, of course, the thought. It has to be God-powered. And you can think of a great many other, perhaps, creatures or animals, if you will, that hold something quite unique. What about that little bug? I forget the name of it. You know that little bug that squirts something from its behind, if you will? It has like this potent or something quite acidic, or I forgot. That was another study we had, or another session we had several years ago now probably, but it's impossible for the evolutionary model to explain such a creature, such an insect, or such a beast, all these things. It just is, and that's part and parcel, one of the components that triggered me into a greater search of Christianity or God or greater power than self. There has to be. Now, you may choose not to follow said God, but that does not alleviate you from the responsibility of knowing there is a greater power. You can call it what you want to call it, and most of the world does, and creates the greater power that they know exist into their own image and make him to be whatever they want him to be. which is the ocean of confusion out there. But that aside, there is a needle in the haystack. And with dedicated and passionate search, you will find that needle in the haystack. Pure Christianity. The authentic and genuine Christ-like belief. And it is sourced within its written word. And we can observe all that is around us, pointing as a sign to the being that has spoken all things into upright function. And you can honor science and its processes while simultaneously still or knowing that there is a higher power. Spite the attempts of those who have since hijacked the scientific model for their agenda. I mean, they've created their own employment with it. They're making a lot of money. They're not going to want to say they're wrong. You mean to tell me that all these scientists are wrong? Yes, they are. How can you know that? Because they're making a lot of money, number one. They're not going to let that go. And number two, the model does not give credibility or justification to the worldview of atheistic evolution. It just does not. It doesn't. So let me see here. As far as the article, let me see if there's something else in the article we could find to read. Let me see. It's a scientific report, obviously. And bacterial luciferin system speaks of the system. It speaks of its intricate details. Yeah. Probably a bit too tedious, I suppose. Yeah. Again, I encourage you to go read that, no doubt. Okay. Just for your information, luciferin. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. I've been trying to see if I could pronounce it properly. Luciferin. That makes sense. Good to see all of you here, by the way. I see a few comments. I don't see everyone who's viewing, but I see a few comments. Good to see you. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, those words are important, of course, in describing what it is they are observing and how it functions. And truly, there is only two model worldviews to our existence. There always has been. Either A, in the beginning, God created. In the beginning, God, right? We know God. Or nothingness, spontaneously exploded into something. We can't explain where that spontaneous nothing came to something, but we just accept it because, well, the experts told us to. And somehow, through primordial soup, everything we see today came to be. And we can't explain that, obviously, because it makes no sense. So we have to add in a third party, time. Time. Let's make this a religion of time. With enough time, anything can be. Given it enough time, a chair will make itself. That's what we like. This is what we entertained for a while. This is what has hijacked all levels of public power in principle. Academic institutions, entertainment industry, the media world, right? Government, and everywhere. There is no God. No, we've been lied to. That's not true. That's not real. And we need to teach the kids. We need to go back to the scientific model which proved that there is a higher power. We need to teach the kids that there's nothing wrong in both knowing factually that science and God cooperate together. Matter of fact, God gave us science. He gave us the wrench to fix the car. Wrench, car, maybe not. Well, he gave us the tools necessary to know he exists. Well, why not just plainly tell us and show himself? He did. We crucified him. We have his book. He will appear one day again. He will open the sky. The trumpets will sound. And the end of age for mankind will come to be. But yeah, I mean, I remember, again, entertaining the thought that there was no God and everything you see around you is just an accident because the experts say and the science say and school teachers told us and so on and so forth. And everybody can't be wrong, right? Well, it alleviates guilt for a small smidgen of a time, if you will, for most of us. It's just like, yeah, what am I worrying about, right or wrong? There is no right or wrong. Just do what you want to do. Well, there's no substance in that worldview, obviously, and it doesn't last very long. After a while, you're like, man, there is evil in this world, and I'm contributing to evil. Like, something's up. Why do I have a conscience? If I'm an animal and I come from primordial soup, billions of years, why do I have a conscience? Why do I have emotions that are involved with love or hate or anger or joy? What is this? A product of evolution? How can nothingness, void of no intelligence whatsoever, just nothing, make this? It makes no sense. It just doesn't. It holds no weight at all. It cannot be. So at the very least, I had become an individual who said, yeah, there has to be a higher power. There is a God. I'm just going to choose not to follow him. And I'll still live life the way I want to live life, which is, of course, filled with lawless activities and thoughts and behaviors. But I know there's a God now, at least. Everything I see around me, it cannot just be nothingness that made this. I've made it there in my life. There has to be something greater. And I've read about who he is through this book they call the Bible. And though I see a great many good things in there, obviously, I want to continue to live a lawless life. So I do believe there is a higher power, there is a God, but I'm just not going to follow him. And of course, that left me in a deficit for many years because, well, he keeps telling me that to believe in him is and to follow him results in eternal life. But to not believe in him and follow him, like you can believe in him, but if you still believe in him and not follow him, that doesn't lead to eternal life. And I'm observing around me everyone dying. And I'm like, I'm going to have to die too one day. Why? So there is a God. I can observe everything around me. There has to be a higher power. And this higher power communicated with us through a book. And that's pretty smart. That's a pretty smart move. A book, written words. And this book says you should know God because God is love. And to not follow God is to not follow love. And if you're not following love, then what does that leave you with? Because hate can't be in heaven. And we all have to die. And it's an inevitable, objective, absolute reality of our existence. We are going to have to depart this earth at one time. Some of us, it's earlier than others. Some of us later than others. But it's going to happen. Why? Why were we created then? Why does this happen? What's taking place? Oh, the very lawlessness I want to keep practicing, though I know there is a God now, there has to be. There has to be a higher power. But I don't want to follow him. Why? Because I want to continue to live lawlessly, meaning I want to keep living in sin and do what the world does. Sin's pleasurable. It's fun. So why would I stop that? I don't want to stop that. But apparently, that's the very reason, sin, that's the very reason we die. So sin is pretty much murdering us. And if we stop sinning and follow God, we don't need to die. But we're going to die anyway. So what does that? Oh, physically. Physically, this vessel, this body we abode, has to go back to the dust in which it came. Why? Sin entered the world. That is the consequence. It's a very just consequence. Okay. That starts to make sense because in the beginning, God told Adam and Eve, Here is law. I want to know if you love me. I am permitting you 99 wonderful blessings to participate in, but there is one condition. Stay away from that over there. Don't look at it, don't go close to it, and certainly don't eat from its fruit. Stay away from that place. Law. If you disobey me, I love you so much, I'm going to tell you the consequence of disobedience. If you rebelliously disobey me and go against my law, which is structured to protect you, by the way, you will burn yourself. You will have to die. And lo and behold, Adam and Eve, they go ahead and do exactly what they were not permitted to do, which put themselves in danger because the structure of their relationship was not upright. In other words, Adam was not leading Eve. Eve was leading Adam, and therein a fallacy to the relationship. And so they partake. They go to where they were not supposed to go, and because they went to a place where they weren't supposed to go, they found themselves with an element, a slithering snake who was very cunning and persuasive, knowing their weaknesses, utilizing their weaknesses, bringing doubt into their mind upon the law that God had spoken, and they rebelliously do what they were not supposed to do. And because of that, the law and justice had to be upheld, which was capital punishment. They needed to die both physically and spiritually. But they didn't die physically. Why? And they had an opportunity to move forward on earth, yet with strict condition and deep consequence. But why? Because apparently, as the scriptures would say in Genesis, God was going to come among man on earth. He was going to walk among man on earth. Jesus, the Son of God, the Christ, the Messiah. Because something needed to die, and his son was going to be that sacrifice, which permitted Adam and Eve and all who came from Adam and Eve to walk the earth, though in lawlessness, some of them, to walk the earth. So Adam and Eve did not immediately perish. They were permitted to go on. Why? Because Jesus was coming one day. And Jesus is the Son of Man, which is the liaison from man to God. He is the Son of God. He is the unique, divine God on earth. And through him, we need not die eternally. We could have eternal life. So, though I believed in God, I still wanted to practice lawlessness, but was beginning to find out that lawlessness is the very reason we die. But we don't need to die eternally. We can be with God in heaven, resting in peace forever, if I let go lawlessness. In other words, I no longer live in accordance to sinful practices, behaviors, thoughts, so on and so forth. Well, now, wait a minute. I've gotten quite accustomed and attached to sin. Sin is fun. You know, fornication, adultery, everything that is corrupt in the world. It's fun. It's pleasurable to the flesh. Which is why, of course, atheism has such an attractive spell and charm on individuals. Because it says you don't need to feel guilty. You don't need to have a conscience. You can be an animal and just do what you want to do. It doesn't matter. We come from nothing. There is no heaven or hell. There is no God or Satan. There is no right or wrong. And we're like, oh, that seems like a fun thing to believe in. I mean, that seems like a fun thing to believe in. If I adhere to what the scientists and the experts say, which is there is no God and we're a bunch of animals, then I don't need to feel guilty about fornicating, being an adulterer, being a homosexual, being an abortionist. I can lie, cheat, steal. I can murder. I can just be a belligerent, foolish individual. I can do whatever I want to do. Which, of course, if you study it, is the religion of Satanism. It's a satanic religious worldview. What is Satanism? It's self. It's the religion of self. I make myself my own God, and I want to just do whatever I want to do. It's pleasurable to sin, so I want all kinds of sin. I want to live in the extremes, in the excess of it all. But that's the very reason we die. But we no longer need to be burdened by the consequences of sin, because through Christ we live. It's a path, like I'm sharing a thought, the thought process, the path. Everything around us, we've been told, is an accident. But your eyes are not lying to you. You're seeing it. Yes, there are moments of, the craft of illusion, the craft of deception, or smoke and mirrors, the TV screen, giving you an idea that's not true or something that's not real. You can be deceived by what you think you see, no doubt. But I'm speaking of, you go outside, you see grass on the ground, you see trees growing, you see a sky, you see a moon, you see stars, you see the sun, you see animals, you see creatures and critters and insects, you see yourself moving and functioning, thinking. Where does that come from? You're being told that that's nothing and it came from nothing and it's just an accident? And we've been meant to try to believe that? Hogwash. That's foolishness. Okay, so we've made it there. There is something. There must be a greater power. Okay, but I don't want to follow that greater power because I love living in sin. I love doing sinful things. It's pleasurable to me. But why do we die? And I'm going to have to die. So I only have an ungiven amount of time to live in sin. It may be one day. It may be 1 year. It may be 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Even if it was 100 years, it's still only 100 years, which is only a blip in eternity. Like it's nothing. Am I willing to give up eternity, the forevermore, for 100 years? For 1 day? Most say, yeah, I'm willing to do that. And I was for a great many years and should have died a great many times, I assure you. Life flashed in front of my eyes a great many times. But somehow, some way, God permitted me to make it to the point where it's like, this sinful life thing isn't all it's cracked up to be. I've gained a lot of wisdom, a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, a lot of regret. But it it didn't need to come that way. I could have learned it from God instead of from the world. Like there's it's a deep, deep burden. So then you see, then you tell yourself, well, okay, now I'm going to start reading the Bible. Let me see what's in there. Can I even trust the thing? That was another one. I don't even know if I can trust that book. Maybe it's been manipulated and perverted throughout the years. It's just a bunch of old men saying a bunch of old things. I don't know. What is it? Can I trust it? So then you start to investigate that path. And lo and behold, again, you get to find out how exactly we received it. And wouldn't you know it, it didn't come from the mind of man. The more you research, the more you see that there is a divine providence behind it, which made it available to us in its complete, perfect form. And so you begin to start to read the New Testament. Let's learn about this man named Jesus. The reason Adam and Eve didn't need to die on that day when they disobeyed God, I want to know why. Well, now I'm reading why. It's about this man named Jesus, and you get to learn who he really was through his Gospels. You get to learn who he was, the message he was speaking, and how great and powerful and loving he is and was and will forevermore be, and how through him we can have life. We can have eternal life, meaning once we depart from this earth, transition of sorts, we go into the realm of eternity, a location in which you are going to live forever. And it's either going to be forever in torment, which is the location of punishment justice had, or the location of eternal peace and rest. Well, I've seen enough evil and death on this earth to say I don't want to leave this place only to go to hell forever. I figure if I can make it through this life, I want to go somewhere where I can live in peace forever. And though And through that decision and that path, God's blessed us with family and career in Christ, purpose to proclaim his word, to love and minister to his people, to everyone, even our enemies. And it's such a fulfilling reality and a very profound truth. And it heals the mind, and it sobers the thought, and you become educated in things that are tangible, that you can hold with your faith. Why do you believe in Jesus? He's not real. Oh, he is. The Jesus you're thinking of isn't, though. That's the one that men created in their own image out there. But there is indeed a pure Christ. There is a true and real Christianity. It takes time to learn these things, though. And an honest seeking individual, asking, seeking, and knocking will indeed find. The door will be opened. We'd love to facilitate that opportunity your way if you are found on the East Coast of Canada. Check out eastcoastchurchofchrist.com. We'd love to have you and study with you. If you are a seeking individual, if you are an individual who is seeking, there is much to learn. And it is truly amazing how the power of the mind can open through God's blessing when we begin to walk and learn and walk according to the truth, reality, which sets us free, of course, from the bondage of a myth and lies that we're just a bunch of animals. We're not. We're created in his image. We are unique. And he loves us greatly. He sent his son. He sent his son to die on a cross for you and I. I want to know about a man who died for me. Why did he do that for? What did he die for me for? I'm nothing special. Why would he do that? Why would someone I've never met die a brutal, violent death? And he didn't even need to do it, by the way. Like he had the power and the authority to say, no, I'm not permitting this to happen to me at all. He did so. He submitted to his Father in heaven and went through with it so that you and I could have eternal life. And it is most important that we recognize it all began with a little firefly, bioluminescence. For some of us, that's where it all begins. How on earth can an insect light its butt up like that? This neon green color. And we're being told that's an accident, it's a product of evolution? For some of us, that's how our path towards faith begins. Believe it or not. It does. For some of us, that's where it begins. And it's an interesting, when you look at the providential path to it all, it's very interesting how God has made available everywhere's his existence, right before us. And why most of us fishes try to deny the existence of water, I don't know. I used to be there. Sin, really, lawlessness. We'd much rather believe in something that's not real or do things that are destructive to self and everyone around us. Doesn't matter if we tell ourselves it feels fun, it feels nice, I'm comfortable with doing it. Doesn't matter, it's wrong. Our conscience is telling us it's wrong. Because there's a greater purpose in life than just stuff we have and see. There's more to it. It points to something greater. Yes, sir. That's what's going on. All right, my dear friends. But that'll be the end of this session here. I truly appreciate you guys tapping in here with me, have this conversation a bit. Again, the article, if you want to read it, it's quite interesting, is from apologeticspress.org, and it's titled, let me go back to the title here, Living Light, the Mechanisms and Diversity of Bioluminescence. Yeah, a scientific review, of course, of the function within these bioluminescence creatures or whatnots. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Please consider subscribing, liking, following, share, comment, all that kind of stuff. Interacting with the material helps it go further. Lord willing, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time, we'll have ourselves a conversation again, have ourselves a session, an episode, maybe a topical thing again. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how she goes. Is that good? Stay focused. and stay positive. And Lord willing, we'll see each other tomorrow. Peace out.